I get asked constantly, what are the best exercises and workouts to build muscle and shape your body? First of all, I want to make one thing very clear. There is no such thing as a custom or personalized workout. I know that may sound crazy, especially when so many coaches use that term to market their program to you. But the reality is we all have the same muscles on our body. I have biceps just like you. I have glutes just like you. Your glutes don't develop differently or better from doing a different kind of modality than me. All muscles develop from the same stimulus, and the best stimulus for developing your muscle and providing the shape that muscle gives your body is strength training, weightlifting. Muscle is muscle. If you do yoga, you don't get yoga muscles. If you do Pilates, you don't get Pilates muscles. You're just training suboptimally for the goal that you have. I'm not saying don't do those things. It's not either or, it's and. People with higher IQs understand that two truths can exist at once. It's okay to do Pilates. It's okay to do Orange Theory. I want you to get results as fast as possible and spend your time as effectively and efficiently as possible. I'm gonna answer a lot of questions in this video. Questions like, should I lift high reps and low weight or low reps and high weight? It's actually not one or the other. It's training optimally versus suboptimally. The goal here is to create visual change in our bodies. To do that, we need to build muscle tissue so you increase your basal metabolic rate and burn more calories just functioning, living, and breathing because muscle is more calorically expensive. Maybe you do Orange Theory, F45, bar, or Pilates. But the goal of being able to create visual change in your body hinges on you being able to scale what you're doing effectively. You want to be able to scale movement patterns predictably. I'm all for doing exercise for fun. I'm also for doing what works. And one doesn't have to be at the expense of the other. You can't scale a fucking Pilates reformer. You can always scale strength training. And when I hear you say things like, I'm working so hard, but I can't see results, it's because you're trying to hammer in a nail with a pair of scissors. It's not the best tool for the job. There are two types of people that discourage women from lifting weights. Men who are scared of women and women who are scared of hard work. You all are doing everything under the sun except lifting weights to try and create visual change in your body. So what is your goal? To be the world's best at Pilates? Or is your goal to change your body in an impactful way and keep the results forever? If you chose option B, in this video, I'm going to show you my favorite 13 exercises to create the most effective and impactful change in your body. And I'll let you in on a little secret. Come here. Come here. Closer. All the before-after client results you see plastered all over my social media, those results came from doing these exact exercises. So for those of you who are scared that lifting weights is going to make you manly or bulky, do any of these women look manly or bulky to you? I didn't think so. Let's dive in. All right, so the number one exercise we're gonna start with is squats. I wanna start with squats because they are the most effective and the most impactful when it comes to changing your body. Why is that? Well, when you look at a squat, you are using and recruiting the most muscle fibers possible. And so this is not only really, really impactful for your muscle tissue, but also your nervous system. Squatting is a very stressful exercise on your body in a very good way. When you have to squat all the way down and all the way back up with, bearing weight on your back, it is challenging both your muscle tissue in your quadriceps, in your glutes, your lower back, even your hamstrings to a small extent, your core to stabilize the weight, and also your nervous system to adapt to this stimulus. When you strength train, everything you do is about adaptation. You always want to push your body to adapt to something new, to something challenging that it hasn't encountered before. And so when people say terms like progressive overload, what they mean is every single week, week to week, month to month, you're progressively challenging yourself more and more and more. Also, with every exercise that I show you, I'm going to advocate doing the body weight version first to get used to the movement, and then maybe advancing to very, very light dumbbells, and then just working your way up from there. People ask me all the time, how do I get started? Just get started. Like, look at these videos, do the body weight version. I also demonstrate a lot of body weight stuff in this video to try and prepare you as much as possible. But at the end of the day, no amount of preparation is going to get you to just do the thing. So get in there, try it, be willing to suck at all these exercises so that you can master them. And if you master these exercises, I promise you, you will build a foundation that will guarantee benefits for the rest of your life. This is a tool that you can use forever. So that being said, squats are so impactful, and that's why I'm starting with them. So the first thing I'm gonna show you is me doing squats on a slant board. Why do I squat on a slant board? Squatting on a slant board is beneficial for many reasons. For one thing, I'm 6'5". I have long tibias, which means the lower bones in my leg are really long, and it puts me at a mechanical disadvantage when I go to squat as compared to shorter folks who don't have that mechanical disadvantage. So by elevating my heels on a slant board, I put myself in a more advantageous position from the hips, the knees, and the ankles. Those are the 3 points of hinge that we'll see on a squat: hips, knees, ankles, right? And so there's other reasons why I use a slant board. It's a great way to warm up. For the most part, most people, especially if you're beyond the age of 30, we've used a toilet our entire lives. And I say that because when the invention of the toilet came, people stopped deep squatting. Think about it. Before toilets existed, you had to take a deep squat in order to take a dump, right? And that naturally put your body in that position every single day, assuming you have, decently consistent bowel movements. So that being the case, we have to intentionally do that movement now. And a slant board is just a great thing to have in your house to do squats on, to put your body in an advantageous position and help you keep your back straight instead of bending over at the hips. It's something that has really, really helped me as a taller person, but I recommend them for everyone to get you in a position to be able to perform a deep squat without compromising form. And form is very important. So you can see me doing these slant board squats, and you'll notice that, my back is not super arched. It's pretty neutral, but I'm keeping my chest out. I'm gonna give you a lot of mental cues as I go over these exercises. One mental cue you wanna remember when doing squats is chest out. If you keep your chest out, it's going to tighten your upper back, which in turn will impact your lower back. That's gonna be really important when we move to the barbell squats. But for now, just remember that one mental cue: chest out, keep your head up, and then think about keeping your ass down, right? Because we want to be able to get further than parallel. Parallel meaning our legs, the top of our legs, the quadriceps, parallel with our knees. We want to go beyond that. We want to do a deep squat where our hips fall below the knee joint in the squat. Basically, it's called sitting in the hole. The hole is the bottom point of the squat. And that's what you want to be able to get to. It is much healthier, contrary to popular belief and what doctors would tell you who know nothing about exercise science. It is much healthier for your knees, your hips, and ankles to go beyond parallel eventually. If you can't do it yet, that's fine. Work to that point. When you have a slant board, one of the best things you can do is just sit in the hole. Spend time in the hole, sitting there, opening up your hips, getting used to that. If it's uncomfortable, that means you should probably do it more often. Now, obviously not to the point of really bad pain, but if it's uncomfortable, it's your body saying, hey, I'm not used to this, and if we do more of it, I'll get used to it. And it's something that if you do it every day, even if you go in there and you do 20 air squats a day on a slant board, it will tremendously carry over into your functional life, into your body transformation endeavors, and your joint mobility, something I highly recommend. So that's why I squat with a slant board. And by the way, I warm up doing squats on a slant board as well. Warming up for exercise, the best way to do that is just doing light sets of whatever you're about to do. And a slant board is a great way to go beyond what the movement that you might do when you add weights in. So I even go as far as to do barbell squats on a slant board because I love training the range of motion. At my age, 34 and beyond, I want to be able to bear weight in the full range of motion so that I can, more than anything, maintain my mobility, keep up with my son, and prevent injury when I want to do things like play basketball or run after my son in the yard or bend over to pick something up so I don't pull a fucking groin muscle reaching for the toilet paper. I did that a few years ago, and that was a big sign I need to work on my mobility. So you'll hear me talk about mobility a lot during this video, and mobility is very important. It's not just stretching. It's being able to bear load through the full range of motion, and that right there is what will help you carry. It will carry over in everything you do in your life. So that being said, these are the slant board squats. I recommend a very slow descent, 3 to 4 seconds if you can. Pause at the bottom, explode up. That's the best way to do these. Think chest out. As you get better at these, you'll have better mobility and you'll be able to keep a straighter back the duration of the movement. How many should you do? I'm gonna keep giving you the same answer on this. You always just wanna progressively challenge yourself more and more, but general rule of thumb for lower body exercises, I like sets of 15 to 20 reps. I say that for 2 reasons. One, if you're doing something that challenges you in the 15 to 20 rep range, then chances are that weight is safe for you to handle. and it reduces the chance of injury, especially those of you who are training without a spotter, which is the majority of us, because there's so many people working out from home and there's so many people working from home. Chances are you're not going to have a workout partner. And so if you use a weight for lower body, especially a higher risk exercise, such as squats, and you're using a weight that challenges you in the 15 to 20 rep range, chances are that weight is not heavy enough to put you at risk for injury. So that's why I like that rep range. And so if you're starting out with bodyweight squats, just do 3 or 4 sets of 15 to 20 reps. And then over time, how you would scale that is reduce your rest time. Generally, you want to rest between 60 and 90 seconds. Don't overthink any of this, by the way. As long as you're getting stronger, you're good. But generally, you want to rest, 60 to 90 seconds between sets. And you get right back to the exercise once your breathing has recovered. You want your muscles to fatigue, not your lungs. Remember, the point of strength training is to fatigue and challenge your muscles, not your cardiovascular endurance. That's what cardio is for. This is not cardio. This is getting stronger. This is what's going to change your body. If you want to challenge yourself from a cardio aspect, do fucking cardio after you work out. Don't combine the two. Your workout isn't better by increasing your heart rate. I need you to understand that. A lot of you try to combine exercises and run in between sets. That just makes your weightlifting shittier. Don't do that. Just focus on getting stronger and then do cardio later if you have to do cardio. But this video is not about fucking cardio. Cardio is the dullest tool in the toolbox when it comes to changing your body. Just because it feels hard doesn't mean you're progressing. Those of you who go to Orange Theory should understand that. Just because you're in a group class and you guys are all sweating and it feels like you're working hard doesn't mean it's actually going to change your body. You have to scale what you're doing, and the best way to scale what you're doing is to make sure you can put the most amount of energy into the set that you're focusing on and exert yourself to maximum capacity. And your heart rate is so fucking high that you get less reps. Well, now you've had a less effective strength training workout. Man, oh man. I just had to say that. I feel better. That was cathartic. All right, so getting back to squats, I love these slant board squats. You don't have to use a slant board. You can do just body weight squats, not using a board. If you want to just elevate your heels, use a 2x4 and slightly elevate your heels. Don't overthink this. If you want to just do squats without anything at all, that's fine. Just do them, sitting up and down on a chair. Scale it from where you're at. If sitting in a chair and then getting up is where you're at, start with that. Moving on to barbell squats. So now I'm going to demonstrate what a barbell squat should look like. As you can see, I'm wearing squat shoes. There's basketball shoes, there's ice skating shoes. You also have squat shoes, and I highly recommend them. It's a good investment. They'll last you for the rest of your life, and they have a slight elevation in the heel. They'll give you stability. I love them. I don't squat without them. And again, I have to have an elevated heel to have proper squat form because I'm so fucking tall. For me, I squat an entire atmosphere down to the ground, and so having elevated heels just gives me a great advantage. I'm never going to be a power lifter. That's not my aspiration. I want to be able to handle the most amount of weight that I can within the full range of motion, and squat shoes allow me to do that. You'll also notice I've wrapped my knees. I have another video. It's on YouTube. It's a YouTube short that shows how to wrap your knees. Check that out, and I walk you through the purpose of wrapping your knees, how to wrap your knees, etc. So, barbell squats. This is a whole fucking sport unto itself. You could say squatting is a separate genre from all other weightlifting because of everything that goes into it. So I'm gonna do my best to prepare you to do squats so that you feel confident in doing them. I want you to understand something that's very important for preventing injury on any exercise. Treat everything you do as if you are doing a PR, like the heaviest possible set. If you think that way, when you go to unrack a weight or put a weight up, put it on the rack, you'll use good form. A lot of people get injured picking up and putting down weight, not even during the exercise. So you'll notice that when I unrack the barbell, I'm very intentional, and you should be as well. You should have your own little routine that you do mentally to go into a squat and make sure that you perform your unrack and your setup the exact same way every time. You'll notice that when I get under the bar, I put both feet well up under the bar. I look forward, I take a deep breath, belly full of air, and then I unrack. When you have a belly full of air, your core is going to be more stable. So anytime you are bearing the weight, anytime you're on the way down on a squat, you want to have a full belly of air to brace for that weight at the bottom of the squat. And then you exhale on the way up. That's how you should breathe. You should down and then on the way up. That is how you should breathe during a squat and any other movement for that matter. You exhale on the push, belly full of air. I'm demonstrating a bench press, but you get the idea. Exhale on the push, Inhale when you're bracing the weight. So breathing is important. So just that'll help you lift more weight and also prevent injury long term, especially when you get heavier and heavier. A lot of you will never squat heavy, and that's okay. I'm gonna teach you how to do this anyway. So you'll notice when I unrack the bar, I take 2 steps back into my stance. Now, a squatter who won the US Open, both tested and untested, taught me how to squat, and I'm so grateful. His name's Heavy Harris. He's a badass. Anyway, he taught me how to squat, and I'm so grateful because I'm gonna now give you that knowledge. But basically, when your setup into a squat should be as few steps as possible. This reduces the margin of error. A lot of people get injured because they don't even think about what they're doing when they're unracking the weight, and they wobble to and fro, and you'll take your core off guard if you don't have a belly full, like if you're not ready, and it'll shift from one side to the other, and next thing you know, you squat crooked, and that's how people get injured. So your setup is just as important as the lift itself. 1, 2, back into your squat, right? So I unrack, 1, 2, I'm ready. And at first, if you take more than 2 steps, that's fine. You're just getting used to it. You shouldn't get this perfect right off the bat. Again, we're okay with doing it imperfectly so that we can understand and do it right. 1, 2, you're in your squat, belly full of air, descend. On this descent, you want to be slow. You recruit the most muscle fibers, meaning you have the most impact on the eccentric portion of the repetition, meaning on the way down when you're supporting the weight. You'll notice meatheads in the gym, especially on bench press, will just drop the weight on their chest. Well, you're missing out on an entire half of the rep that could have given you a lot of stimulus. So slow down, have like a 3 or 4 second count on the way down. You'll thank me later when you're getting way more out of the weight that you have instead of having to buy new weight because you've already gotten good at the weight that you have. Those of you with limited equipment really need to think about what I'm saying right now, because if you only have limited equipment, you got to make the best use of that equipment, and slowing down your descent will help you do just that. So you'll notice other mental cues when we're doing these squats. You're thinking chest out, ass down. My elbows on the bar are about shoulder width. For me, I'm really tall and I have limited shoulder mobility, so I move my hands to the furthest points of the bar. Either one will work. It doesn't matter what your hand placement is. Do what's comfortable. You also want to rotate your elbows forward as much as possible. Why do we do that? It makes our upper back tighter, which therefore cues to our lower back to stay tight. And then on the way down, we maintain those forward elbows, and you'll have a much greater chance of keeping that back pretty neutral on the way down and on the way up. Now, if you've never done a deep squat, just practice a few times going like 20% down, 30% of the way down, 50% of the way down, and then try to go down and sit. This is why it's so important to do this stuff without weight, so that when you use weight, it's not a shock to your body. But the more you can get into a deep squat bearing load, the more carryover you're going to have into everything else that you do exercise-wise and functional-wise, mobility-wise, preventing osteoporosis, which is the real win here. I'm literally adding years to your life by giving you this information. So you'll also notice we're looking at the squat sideways, and you can see my bar path. It's as straight as possible. You can tell a lot about a person's squat form by watching the bar as they go down and up. If it's straight up and down, chances are they have pretty good form. If it's rotating forward and making like a S on the way down, that means there's something going on with their hips, or maybe they're leaning over. And I'm not talking power lifters, by the way. I'm just talking the average person who high bar squats on top of your trap muscles, not, trying to break a world record. We're talking about those of us who just want to change our bodies, the average person. This is how you squat, okay? The bar path should be as straight as possible. So film yourself doing squats and try to see where your bar path is and amend as necessary. The other thing I want to talk about is foot placement. Chances are, if you don't have great hip mobility and you've never done squats consistently, you probably need a wider stance so that you can get as low as possible. Over time, I recommend bringing your stance, just slightly outside shoulder width, toes pointed slightly out. This just tends to be the most comfortable position for the most people, and it helps you train the muscles that you want to target. A lot of people don't understand this, but your foot placement will impact which muscles you use to move the weight. And so you don't want to have a position with your feet that doesn't allow you to target the muscles that you want to target. If you're doing squats, it's assumed that you want to develop your glutes and your quadriceps. So to that end, if you want to hit both, you want feet for the most part, generally, and everyone's built differently, by the way, so edit this how you need. But experiment with different foot placement. Try a little bit wider, try a little bit closer. Notice when you do the squat where your back goes, where your hips want to go. Watch yourself in the mirror, see if you lean one way or the other. And then when you find that very comfortable foot placement, just stay there and get really good scaling from there. Once you have it, you'll never forget it, but just be comfortable experimenting with different foot placements. Film yourself doing the exercise, watch from the side. If you have a coach, like, the coaching team that I have, our clients send us videos of them doing the squats and we help them tweak it, adjust until it feels good for them. So again, 15 to 20 reps is a great starting point. If you want to do 10 to 15, that's fine too. There's no wrong here. I would say that if you're using weight that challenges you between 10 and 20 reps, you're fine. Just continue using weight that challenges you within that rep range. Exertion is the hardest thing to teach people, especially when you're not in person. But basically, you want to ask yourself after a set, okay, could I have done more than 20 reps? Let's just use 20 as our cap out here. If the answer is yes, probably need to increase the weight. If you only got 3 to 6 reps, well, probably need to decrease the weight. Just let the reps be your guide. Don't overthink it, and just take note of what you did, the weight you used, the reps you performed, the sets you did, and then simply use those metrics to scale over time. This goes back to scaling, right? You can quantifiably look at your reps and your weight and your sets over time, and you can make increases to those. This goes back to what I said in the beginning of the video about scalability. If you can't look at what you're doing and guarantee progression by scaling it, then what you're doing has a cap on it. So when we go back to, things like Pilates, bar, F45, I'm not shitting on those modalities, but here's the analogy I want to give you. Picture a skyscraper, and let's say that your potential is the 60th floor, the potential of your body development, what you want to achieve, the 60th floor. There's multiple ways to get to the top of this skyscraper. Some work better than others. For example, strength training with weights is like using the elevator straight to the top of the 60th floor, guaranteed. Pilates is like taking the stairs to the 60th floor. Also, your progress is capped at floor 30, okay? So not only will you progress slower, your progress and your potential is capped with that modality. So hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't do those things, especially if you enjoy them. I'm an advocate for continuing to do what you enjoy. It's not either or, it's both and. It's and. You can do Pilates and you can also throw in legit strength training with weights that's scalable so that you can get to that 60th floor while still doing the thing that you enjoy. That's the best of both worlds. That is what people who with critical thinking skills can do. People with binary thinking think it's either or. You have to be on one team or the other, one camp or the other, just like the political system in the US. That's what pits people against each other and everyone stagnates. It's not binary. It's not either or, it's and. I can do things I love and I can do things that are most effective for my goals. And best case scenario is you enjoy all of it. I really enjoy progression. That's why we're here. So that's squats. Squats, like I said, are by far the most impactful movement you can do. They train your core, they train your quadriceps, they train your nervous system, they train your glutes, they train your hamstrings, they train, your lower back to a lesser extent. You have to stabilize the weight. It's just a wonderful movement. And if I could only pick one movement for people to do to scale their progression with their body as effectively as possible, it would be squats 10 times out of 10. I love squats. I've been doing them for years and years and years. They're great for athletes. They're great for the elderly. They're great for women. They're great for men. They're great for dinosaurs. They're great for everybody. Do fucking squats. The next exercise we're going to talk about is split squats. Now, if you can't do squats, or if you want to exercise that is equally as impactful as squats, split squats are the shit. I love split squats. They are by far the hardest exercise that you can possibly do. They are a motherfucker, but they are also very impactful because it's like taking squats and now challenging yourself to do it on one leg. Now you have so much more balance that comes into the picture. And the reason why I did squats first and then split squats is because split squats are more challenging than squats. And so this is for more advanced folks. However, you can scale these very effectively and there's modifications that you can do, kind of help them match your skill set. So you'll see that I am using a barbell. You don't have to use weight. In fact, I highly recommend not using weight when you first start doing these things. You'll also notice I'm putting my foot back on a bench. You also don't have to do that. You can just put one foot back behind you, experiment with the distance of your front foot and your back foot, and simply scale these from body weight, from where you're not using a bench. By the way, you could use a couch if you don't have a bench. Then you go to using a bench, putting your leg up behind you, and then you can scale to weighted. You can also hold dumbbells while doing these, or you could use a barbell like I'm doing, but I'm gonna show you using a barbell. So one thing that you'll notice is that I also rotate my shoulders forward, just like I would on squats, as best I can. You'll notice I catch myself during the movement, reminding myself to rotate my elbows forward. That will, again, have the same impact it did on squats. It keeps your upper back tight, which is a cue to your lower back. You'll also notice that I'm pretty close to the bench. Now, the cool thing about split squats is you can actually modify which muscles you emphasize depending on the distance of your front foot forward. So the further forward your front foot is, the further out you are from the bench, the more glute you're going to bring into the equation, right? And think about this in terms of like on leg press as well. If you ever do leg press, the further your foot is up the plate, the more glute you're going to bring into the movement. So if you want to emphasize glutes on this movement, simply move your front foot forward more. Now you are going to get more hip stretch on that back hip when you do that. So this is something you really want to be careful with. You want to make sure that you are controlling the movement at every point of the movement. And you also want to make sure that you listen to your body. If you start to feel pain anywhere, stop and then kind of assess what it was that made you feel that pain. Now, when it comes to how many reps you do, these are more challenging to you. So whereas, with squats, a 15 to 20 rep set is already exhausting. On these, 10 reps each leg will be more than enough until you get, more experience with them. Because again, we're putting all of the emphasis on one leg at a time. I recommend doing these in addition to squats. You should do both. This is what's called a unilateral exercise when you're using one limb at a time. They're wonderful for athletes. They're wonderful for parents because as opposed to a movement where it's bilateral, where you're locked into place, and you're exerting your force upward against gravity. Forgot to hit on this with squats. I'll hit on it in a second. Keep in mind when you're lifting weights, the resistance is gravity. Gravity is pushing down. When you see influencers on a barbell squat thrusting their hips forward, what are they thrusting against? Gravity's not pulling backwards. There's no point in thrusting your hips forward and jutting your hips out on a squat. With every movement that I do, you'll notice I don't fully lock out the joint. The reason for that is we want to keep tension on the muscle. We're not trying to make our joints stronger. We're trying to make our muscles stronger. Your joints will benefit as a byproduct of weightlifting in general, but locking the joint doesn't make the joint stronger. It takes tension off the muscle and puts it on the joint. We're not training our joints, we're training our muscles. So I will go to about 90% before I extend or before I go all the way down 90%. So basically picture it as a range and I'm falling between two hash marks. Fully extended, taking the tension off the muscle, I stay in the hash marks and I keep tension throughout the movement. What that basically means is at every point in the movement, you're either supporting the weight or you're moving the weight, right? You don't ever take tension off the muscle. It remains on the muscle. So that's a little more advanced, but getting back to split squats, as opposed to a squat where you're pushing up against gravity, it's not very, that doesn't have much carryover unless you're jumping straight up. Split squats will give you strength moving forward because you're putting that hip all the way back behind you. So this would carry over into a run or a jog or anything where you're actually propelling yourself forward, which is actually more functional than a squat. Squats are extremely functional, but split squats, I would say, are even more functional because they help you train that full range of motion and it helps prevent injury so you can enjoy shit with your kids. When I go to the trampoline park with Denver, I'm one of the only parents out on the trampolines. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I do movements like this that help me be able to still be athletic and move at the age of 34 and beyond. I will still be playing with him when I'm 50. Well, I guess he'll be how old will he be when I'm 50? He'll almost be 20. So yeah, maybe we'll be playing basketball or something. I don't know. Anyway, my goal is to be active with him for the rest of my life. Scaling split squats, like I said, start with nothing behind you, right? Just have your foot on the ground. Get used to that, just going straight up and straight down. As you progress, put your leg back up on a couch or a chair. If you have a bench, use a bench. And then don't use any weight starting out. Add weight as you go. Start with 5, 10-pound dumbbells. Get used to supporting that weight. Get used to balancing. If you need to hold on to something, I highly recommend it. Don't fall over. Do the movement where you have something in front of you, like the couch or like that lever you see in front of me. Sometimes I'll bring that closer to me and grab out and hold it. If you want to hold on to something, do it. That's a great modification for those of you who have knee pain as well, so you can control how much tension you're putting on that muscle. You can control the resistance effectively if you're holding on to something. So highly recommend that for people who are either injury prone or very new to this movement. Start out holding on to something so you can get used to it. I have to hold on to something all the time. And the cool thing about that is you can challenge yourself by holding it less and not holding on to it as much. And then as you trust yourself more and more and you get more balance, then you can completely let go. And so that's a cool way to scale it as well. Love split squats. You should absolutely do them. I recommend sets of maybe 10 reps each leg, which would be 20 reps total. 3 to 4 sets is plenty. and just challenge yourself more over time. And that's split squats. The next exercise I'm going to show you all is deadlifts. Besides squats and split squats, deadlifts are by far the most impactful exercise you can do for a variety of reasons. And there's a ton of modifications and variations of deadlifts that you can do to hit different muscles and have more carryover into your body. So what I am demonstrating in this video, and by the way, you'll see Denver in a lot of these videos. I highly recommend working out in front of your children. It's one of the greatest things you can do because kids do less of what we say and way more of what we do. If they see you working out, even if it's you doing lunges around the living room while Bluey and Blippi are playing on the TV, they will see that, oh wow, this is important to mom. Mom cares so much about herself and she believes in herself and trusts herself so much and she feels like she is worth it because she works out even when there's time constraints. You don't need an hour. 10 minutes is impactful. I need you to understand that. Stop being one of these people who don't work out just because you don't have an hour. You don't need a fucking hour. You just need to do it. Get it in where you fit it in. So with these deadlifts, what I'm demonstrating here is just starting from jump here. How you pick up the barbell is very important. Don't just bend over and pick it up. You want to make sure that you pick up the way that you would lift it, right? So use good form, keep your back straight, lift with your legs. Now, this is what I'm demonstrating. Straight leg deadlifts are what I'm demonstrating right here. These are going to emphasize the hamstrings and then to a lesser extent the glutes. Now, you'll notice that my shoulders are forward. You'll notice that the barbell is staying close to my body. You'll notice that I'm almost just kind of acting like I'm going to touch my toes on this and do like a hamstring stretch. My knees aren't fully locked. Do not fully lock your knees. Just have them about 90% of the way locked. And you'll notice I'm controlling the weight on the way down. And so some mental cues on these. Any exercise that you do, you want to think about, do I feel it in the target muscles? And if you don't feel it in the target muscles, let's find an alternative or let's tweak the movement until you do. One thing that I'm thinking about here, I'm thinking push the ground backwards with my feet. Think about scooting the floor backwards with your feet, okay? When you do that, if you think about scooting the floor backwards, you will naturally recruit more hamstring. It's just like, think about if you were to grab the floor with your toes and pull it back with your feet on the way up. So you want to also maintain tension on the hamstrings. So you'll notice I'm not coming all the way up with the bar. I'm just going about 90% of the way down and coming up to about 90%. I'm not standing straight up. I'm not stopping at the bottom. I'm maintaining tension on the muscles the entire time. And the muscles we want to target here are our hamstrings. If you do these right, you won't be able to walk. And I mean that in a good way. So what you want to do is keep tension on the hamstrings. Sets of, 10 to 15 reps are more than adequate for these. This is a great functional movement. It's great for your lower back. You want to keep your back pretty neutral, as you see. I will actually round my back at the top just a little bit because I'm using lighter weight here, and you don't need much weight. You can do these with dumbbells. You can do these with a light barbell. There's all kinds of ways to modify these as well. You can do one-legged deadlifts. One thing I'm going to show you in this video is I'm going to transition from a straight leg deadlift to what's called a conventional deadlift. The difference is quite a bit. There's quite a bit of mechanical differences. My feet are about shoulder width apart, by the way, for a deadlift stance. Think about like if you're going to jump where your feet would be. It's just kind of like an athletic stance. Toes are forward, right? But with a conventional deadlift, you'll notice now there's more bend in the knee and I shoot my butt back a little bit more. Now, going back to the straight leg deadlift, one mental cue I want to give you for that is think about there's a rope tied to the front of your pelvis and your tailbone. And when you come up, the rope pulls your hips forward. When you go down, the rope pulls your butt back. If you just think about shooting your butt back, if you think about a rope pulling you back and then pulling you forward, it'll help be a mental cue and help you, again, recruit more hamstrings. Now going into the conventional deadlift, again, you'll notice I start to bend my knees. This conventional deadlift is going to target more glutes. It's going to hit lower back. It's a more power-based movement as opposed to a straight leg deadlift, which is not much of a strength movement at all. It's more of a hypertrophy movement, which just means, more targeting specific muscles for muscle breakdown and rebuild. But both of these exercises are wonderful. They're important for function. They're important for mobility, and they'll have a lot of carryover in your everyday life. If you think about like bending down and picking up anything heavy, having a strong lower back, deadlifts also recruit a lot of nervous system activity. So it's one of those exercises, a big exercise like squats that has a lot of nervous system benefits, and you'll need more time to recover from a squat and a deadlift because of that fact. You're not just recovering your muscles, you're recovering your nervous system. You don't grow in the gym or during your workout. You grow outside when you're recovering. So give yourself adequate recovery and make sure that you give yourself time to recruit, the nutrients that you need, to get the sleep that you need, so you can come back and train harder and challenge yourself more. It's not about more is better in terms of duration or frequency. What I mean by that is it's not about how long you work out or how frequent you work out. It's about how intense you work out compared to the last intensity of your workout. And so if you're always scaling your intensity, you're telling your body that it needs to adapt. If you just work out longer, but it's not intense, it's not going to challenge your body. Your body's just going to get used to just, you might as well just be flapping your arms holding dumbbells, right? Intention behind your workouts is very important. So that's why I keep going back to quantifying and scaling these movements. Keep the data, look at the data, reps, sets, weight, and increase those things over time in some way. More reps with the same weight, higher weight with and performing, challenging yourself from a rep PR standpoint, or adding a set, but completing your workout in the same amount of time. So squeezing more volume into the same amount of time while scaling the other two as well. That's ideal. So your grip on the bar should be about shoulder width apart. It's hard to see that because it's filming from the side, but you want to have your grip about shoulder width apart. Overhand is what I recommend. Some people you'll see use the inverted grip. I'm a fan of overhand. Just keep it simple. At some point, you may want to look into wraps so that you don't have to worry about your grip giving out. If your grip does give out, I recommend Versa grips. That can help the average person hold on to dumbbells a little bit easier. You can do this movement with dumbbells, by the way. So if all you have is dumbbells, you would do the exact same thing, just with dumbbells. And with dumbbells, you have a little bit more free range of motion with your arms. You can let them hang at a 45 or in front of you. It doesn't matter. There's many variations of this exercise. Okay, so here's another deadlift variation, the one-legged deadlift. I love these. These will fuck your hamstrings up, just so you know, and your glutes. When you're doing these, as you can see, I'm just holding a dumbbell. I'm also holding onto the bench in front of me. And then as I get used to the movement, and with Denver's support here, as you can see, I gradually let go of the bench so that I'm struggling. I want you to see me struggle on these because this is a very hard exercise. It's actually better for your balance if you pick a point in front of you and focus on it rather than looking down like I am. But you want to get to the point where you can do these without holding on to anything. And you just, like I'm doing right here, holding the dumbbell and then just doing the exact same movement, shooting your leg out behind you, keeping that front leg exactly as it was on the straight leg deadlift. And these are wonderfully, the reason why you want to do unilateral movements like this is because all of us have some former injury, like whether from sports or from a surgery, and we compensate over time to protect that muscle or that injury. And so unilateral movements keep us from compensating because you're making that one leg handle all of the lift. So huge fan of unilateral movements. This is another one you can throw in addition to your bilateral movements, meaning 2 feet at a time. The next exercise I'm going to show is rows. Rows are a wonderful exercise. Why would you want to do rows as a woman? Because now we're going to start to get into these exercises that men should do, quote unquote. These are going to be a lot of upper body exercises. So I'm going to explain why as a woman you would want to do an exercise like rows. So why would you want to do rows? Well, think about how your back looks in a bikini, a backless dress, anything that shows your back. Aside from the functional benefits of being able to both pull and push, right? And balancing out your body overall and having good posture. There's a lot of posture carryovers to what I'm about to show you with rows. Rows will help you develop your entire upper back and some of your lower back as well, so that you can avoid some of these things that people complain of because they don't weight train, such as love handles and bat wings. A lot of women, and this is coming straight from what female clients have told me their insecurities are, and I'm honored to share that space with you all, but a lot of the things you told me center around the way your back looks in like a tight sports bra, or like the body fat that gets kind of pushed out when you have a bra strap or a shirt or a romper or anything that would be tight fitting in this place. If you want to avoid that, you want to build muscle in that area so that it's more firm and so that it has less body fat in that area. The key to getting less body fat is building more muscle. That's a huge hack that people ignore all the time. People focus on dieting, but if you build more muscle, you'll never have to worry about losing body fat, because it's really hard to have a high amount of body fat when you also proportionally have a substantial amount of muscle tissue. So the more muscle you build, the more impact you're going to have on these problem areas that people get because they avoid lifting weights their entire life. I want to save you from that fate. So with rows or any pulling movement, so both a vertical pull down and a row where it's horizontal, right? Remember that the resistance is gravity with weights always. With weights, your resistance is always gravity. And so you want to think about gravity pulling straight down. We're going to resist gravity. So on barbell row, like the ones I'm going to show you, notice first of all how I pick up the weight. I'm going to keep going back to that because you want to be safe when you pick up a weight, and use good form so that you don't injure yourself, because so many people injure themselves picking up the weight. Notice that I bend over very carefully, and then I'm almost horizontal with the ground, but not quite. Now, when I start doing this movement, you'll notice my elbows pull back towards my butt. The reason for that is we want to activate the latissimus dorsi, your lats basically. Your lats run the length of your back. Everyone's different with where your muscles insert, but when you pull further back, you work both your upper and lower back. And so that is why you'll see me pulling towards my hips with that bar, where the bar is almost scraping the tops of my legs. One mental cue for rows is you want to be thinking pull with your elbows. Picture your hands as like meat hooks. Your hands are only there to hold the weight. You don't want to pull with your biceps if at all possible. I mean, obviously you're going to use them to some lesser extent, but you want to use your back primarily for this movement. And back is one of the hardest things to train because it's back there. You can't see it. I don't even trust what's going on back there. And so I actually literally close my eyes a lot of the times when I'm training back and think about squeezing my back. You'll notice I even take some time to squeeze on some of these reps, right? And so you can do these with dumbbells, you can do them with barbells. If you're going to do them on a bench, which I'll demonstrate that here in a sec, it's a wonderful way to support your lower back, because I know a lot of you have lower back injuries like lower back injuries like myself, and you need that kind of support. And so I just love my little boy. He's the best. I miss him. Whenever I film these videos, he comes home and he comes back over here and he's like, he'll see it and he'll say, "Did you film this when I wasn't here?" Because usually I film video like this, right? He'll say, was I at Mama's when you filmed that? And I'll be like, "Yeah, I was, buddy." He's actually in these videos, which is really cool. I just miss him so much. Anyway, so remember, pull with your elbows, squeeze that contraction at the top, let it down slow, control the movement. 10 to 15 reps with these, 3 to 4 sets is perfectly optimal. It's fine. Don't overthink this shit. Just do it. And now what I'm gonna show you now is me going full tilt on rows. So this set is me lifting a heavy ass weight. You'll notice I'm using wrist straps. So that wrist straps allow me to use less bicep and help me use more back. And help me just use my hands as grips basically and not pull with the wrong muscles. So here I am doing, what is that? 225 pounds. And this is what like an actual set would look like with me like going all out. Always make sure your kid's out of the way. You'll notice Denver was trying to show me something here. And I was like, "Bubba, watch out, Bubba, the barbell is heavy." I kind of was awkward here trying to pull it off the deadlift lever. You're not really supposed to use that, but I was just trying to be lazy. Don't be lazy like me. Pull it from the floor or from a rack on the squat rack, even better. Anyway, you'll notice I do the same thing, but it takes a little bit of momentum to move the weight because it's so heavy. That's okay to an extent, but I was just trying to move as much weight here as possible and still have decent form. So that's what an all-out set for me would look like. I do as many as I can. You notice I have to pause there at the end and then just squeeze a few more out, and then I'm done. And that was my only set. That was my only working set, because I just do one set all out when I work out, and then I'm done. On to the next. So that's barbell rows. Now I want to show you a supported row. Very important. So you'll set the bench. If you have an adjustable bench, you would set the bench at like a 45-degree angle if you can. And then for those of you who have breasts, unlike me, you want to make sure your breasts are clear of the bench. I've just heard this from all of our clients. This can be a difficult movement if you're well endowed or whatever. You want to keep contact with the bench. Keep your sternum with the bench. Now it's the same movement with my elbows though. I'm pulling back. So if you see people in the gym, they're doing rows and they're pulling straight up and they're doing the chicken wing, that's not what you want to do. That's the improper way to do this. You want to pull back. You want to pull back and then squeeze. Act like you're going to touch your elbows together behind you. So this takes lower back having to support the weight completely out of the picture. It's wonderful for those of you who need to modify for lower back injuries like myself. And you can still scale this movement very effectively. Same rep range, 10 to 15-ish reps, 3 to 4 sets, plenty. And think about meat hooks and you're pulling with your elbows. It's a wonderful cue for that movement. Start with lightweight till you feel it and then work up from there. That's rows. The next exercise is hip thrusts. I see these all the time on social media and everybody's doing them fucking wrong. Well, not everybody, but most people. The main thing I want you to understand about hip thrusts is if you can't pause with the weight at the top of the movement, it is too heavy for you. So you'll notice I'm starting with no weight here. When you look at my foot placement, so you want your feet about a neutral distance from the bench. You don't want them too close. You don't want them too far away. Just find the spot that helps you train your glutes as effectively as possible. Now, you'll notice I'm going to do several different variations here. I'm going to do unweighted. You'll notice I'm pausing at the top and really squeezing. Understand that gravity is pulling straight down. That's what we're pushing against. I'm going to switch and do one leg at a time now to show you what that would look like. That's a way that you can scale this movement without weights and make it harder and more challenging. So if you're someone who doesn't have dumbbells or very few, this is a way that you can make unweighted harder. And it's just a wonderful movement. It has so much carryover. It's going to hit the glutes. The glutes are actually the strongest muscle in your body. Technically, the tongue is the strongest muscle in the body, but that's not what we're trying to grow here. There's other activities for that. But when we look at the strongest muscle in your body, being your glutes, it runs way further down than people realize. Hip thrusts are a wonderful way to train pretty much the entire glute muscle. If you want to add weight, you can put a dumbbell on your hips like I'm showing here. It's a wonderful way to add some weight, add some more resistance. Again, it's all about controlling the weight. You'll see these fucking meatheads on social media, male and female, who are moving a tremendous amount of weight on the bar, but they can't pause at the top. That's a great indicator that the weight is too heavy and you're going to use the wrong muscles. You want to use the muscles for the job, not recruit other muscles to perform the movement. Use the muscle to move the weight. Don't use the weight to move the muscle. Activate the muscles to move the weight. I can't emphasize that enough, but you want to hold the squeeze at the top. Now I'm going to demonstrate with a barbell. If you're using a barbell, you probably need to use a pad on the bar when you get heavier. You probably don't need a pad at first, but I need to use a bar pad or just wrap a shirt around it or something, a towel, it doesn't matter. And you put the barbell in the same place on your hips that I had the dumbbells, and you would just scale it like that. Slide your legs under and then put your back on the bench. As far as how much of your back needs to be on the bench, experiment, right? You see that I kind of have my shoulder blades on the bench. You just want a stable base. Don't overthink that. Just do something where you feel stable and then go from there. Again, we just want to make sure your feet aren't sliding, you have a good stable base, and you can perform this movement and scale it with heavier and heavier weight. And make sure you feel it in your glutes. Doing them unweighted first and then one leg at a time is a great way to activate the glutes so that you already have that mind-muscle connection when you go into a heavier movement using weight. With these 15 to 20 reps and scaling the fuck out of them is a great way to grow those glutes. And there's just so much carryover into everything else you do with these. This is a great functional movement as well. Highly recommend doing these. They'll have carryover into your squats, into your deadlifts, into every other leg movement. And they also really help with your lower back pain. A lot of lower back pain comes from having weak glutes, tight hamstrings, tight hips, and the stronger your glutes are, the less likely you are to have lower back pain and stuff like that. It's all connected. So that's hip thrusts. The next exercise I'm going to go over is bench press. Before I go any further, I know there's a stigma associated with exercise like bench press. The stigma is only men should do this exercise. This is a male's exercise. For the chest, women don't want a big chest. Let go of all that shit. You're not gonna get jacked and bulky from doing men's exercises. And the longer you avoid doing what you may think is men's exercises, the longer your progress with your body will elude you. When it comes to why we wanna do a horizontal press as a female, having strong, developed pectoral muscles will help support the girls. Whether you have implants or not, having supportive pectoral muscles can help keep the perkiness that a lot of women do ask me about. I get asked this all the time, like, how can I support my sagging breasts? I get asked that in my DMs, and my response is the best thing you can do is train your chest to help support the breasts. There is a lot of merit to training your chest muscles, both for an aesthetic purpose and posture. When we train our body, I want you to remember that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's laws and shit, right? But what this means in terms of your body is if you overdevelop one thing in proportion to another, it can cause structural imbalances in your body. For example, if you only train your front push muscles, your front deltoids in your chest, and you never train the pulling muscles, then what can happen over time is a bent over, rolled, I'm obviously exaggerating, but rolled shoulders type of posture, which can lead to pain in your upper or lower back. So it's equally important to train the action and the reaction, the push or the pull. And so that's another reason why you want to train your forward pushing muscles. So as you can see, Denver was holding the bench in place for me. He is my spotter, and I recommend starting with the lightest weight possible. Now, one thing I want you to notice is how I got into position. It's really hard to, if you've never done any kind of dumbbell push movement, to trust yourself to fall back onto a bench. You can alleviate this fear by putting the dumbbells on your legs, and as you come back, using each leg to push the dumbbell into place, which is about right here. Now, you will notice that I'm going to demonstrate two different variations. One is where your dumbbells are held neutral, like this, and the other is where you flare out and the dumbbells are held like this. Either one will work, but I will tell you that since both will work, I prefer neutral grip and elbows tucked a little bit closer to my body. You'll see my elbows are at about a 45-degree angle and the dumbbells are held neutrally. What this does is it helps preserve your shoulders and your shoulder joints long term. If you get hurt or injured, you can't do anything. So why would we do an exercise that has a safer modification that will allow you to perform it long term and continue to get the results from it? So you'll notice my rep tempo is slow on the way down and then a powerful push up. I want you to remember that on every exercise. You develop the most on the way down, on the eccentric portion of the repetition. And so as I perform these reps, you'll notice also that I am breathing out on the way up. On every push, I'm exhaling. So it's gonna look like this. I'm pushing out, I'm exhaling when I push the weight. My chest is also as far up as I can push it. This will give me more structural integrity and stability, because as you push your chest up, your rear deltoids or your clavicle, your scapula, I don't know, I'm not a fucking kinesiologist here, but it helps grip the bench, right? You'll feel yourself gripping the bench, and it gives you more stability than if you were just laying on it and we're kind of flowing back and forth, right? So stick your chest up. That's going to make you as strong as possible. My elbows go far deeper than parallel with my body. And that again comes back to shoulder mobility. You can stop at 90 degrees, meaning you can stop your elbows right when they hit in line with your body. You don't have to go all the way back. I do because I can with my mobility, and you will get more out of full range of motion on any exercise. You'll get more development, right? But it will still work if you can't go down that far. What you're thinking about mentally while you're doing a dumbbell bench press is you are going to picture a pyramid on your chest, and you are scraping those dumbbells up and down the sides of the pyramid, and that will give you a triangular motion to where you will use more pectoral muscles and less tricep and shoulders. Those are secondary muscles in terms of moving this weight during this exercise. You always want to try and stimulate the primary mover, and the primary mover in this exercise is your chest muscles, so you want to focus on those the most. And picturing that pyramid will help you do that. Now you'll notice that I also demonstrate turning the dumbbells like this and then flaring the elbows a little bit out almost to 90 degrees. Again, our shoulders will be in a compromised position with that type of form. It will still work. You'll see people doing it. I did it for years, and now I'm paying the price with bad shoulders that I have to work on every single day. I'm going to prevent you from going through that by encouraging you to do a neutral grip and tuck your elbows a little bit more, and you'll get the same benefits without the risk of injury. But I do want to demonstrate these because it's not a wrong way to do the exercise. It's different, but there is greater risk with performing the exercise with this form. The other thing I'm going to demonstrate here is this same exercise, but from the floor. I'm demonstrating this because I know not all of you have a bench. So if you're doing it from the floor, you would just lay down on the floor like you see here. Your feet will be on the floor as well to give you stability. All the same concepts apply, except obviously you won't be able to go beyond parallel. Your elbows will stop at the floor, which is totally fine. This is just another variation for those of you who do not have a bench at home. The next exercise I'm going to go over is planks. Yes, we are going to hit a core exercise in addition to everything else. I want to drive this point home, training core will not make your abs show better. It will not make your abs more visible. We all have abs and they're covered by a layer of body fat, and the amount of body fat that you have covering your abdominal muscles will determine how visible they are, and the amount of body fat that you have is determined by your energy balance over time. Consuming less energy than you expend, which is called a caloric deficit, will lead to your body losing body fat. Now, burning fat and losing fat are not the same thing. You burn fat, you burn dietary fat from the food that you eat as fuel. You lose body fat from expending more energy than you consume or consuming less energy than you expend. Either way, at the end of the day, you have to have a deficit of energy so that your body says, I have to get rid of this body fat. And at that point, you lose body fat cumulatively over your entire body. And I always give the flooded town analogy. If it rains really hard in a town and it floods, sun comes out, all the water evaporates at once, but the biggest puddles take the longest to evaporate. Those are your problem areas. Those are the stubborn areas, and those will take the longest. So you just have to be consistent long enough for those last puddles to evaporate. That being said, why we want to train our core is a functional reason. A lot of lower back pain, in addition to having tight hip flexors, tight hamstrings, or tight upper back, something, tight quadriceps, something being tight usually is the cause of lower back pain, barring injury. Another big cause of lower back pain is a weak core. So you'll have people that do say, oh, your core gets enough training from your compound exercises. Yeah, if you're lifting heavy, it's fuck. If you're squatting 400 pounds, it's gonna take a hell of a lot of core strength. If you're only squatting body weight or 20 pounds or 50 pounds, your core is not gonna get stimulated that much. And so you have to directly target your core to strengthen it. My favorite way to do that is planks, which I'm going to demonstrate here. So as you can see, I let myself down slowly. You can do these from a push-up position with your arms extended. I'm going to demonstrate from the elbows. You might want to put a pillow under your elbows. That's totally fine. If you have a hardwood floor, I get it. But the main thing you want to notice here is my tailbone is not completely in line with my body. It's kind of in the air a little bit. The only thing you want holding you up in this core exercise, in planks. And there's a reason why I chose planks, and I'll tell you in a minute, but I'm gonna go over the form first. The reason why you want to do it this way is because you want your core to be the only thing holding you up. You don't want to be using your arms. So you'll notice I also slink in my shoulders at some point, like my shoulder blades sink in, and then all of the tension is on my core. That's the only thing holding me at this point. If I were to let my hips come in, then my legs would come into play to keep me in this position. But if I have my tailbone slightly stuck in the air a little bit, not all the way up, just a little bit, you see where I'm at, that puts more emphasis on my core. How long should you do these? As long as you fucking can. Set a timer on your phone, put it right in front of your face, try to beat your time every time. Now I will say this, if you get really good at planks, and I'll demonstrate side planks as well for the obliques and serratus and rectus abdominis. If you get really good at these, you won't have to do any other core exercise. They're a wonderful core exercise. Obviously, it's good to do a combination of exercises like leg raises, but if you don't have any equipment, if you have nothing to hang from, if you're limited in what you can do, planks are a wonderful way to train the entire core from your sternum all the way to your pubis. They're a great exercise, and they're very easily scalable. You just do them longer, and you don't need any equipment. That's why I love planks. We did a shit ton of them in the Army that will carry over into things like push-ups, modified push-ups, or anything where you have to use your core to brace. Any of you who love to run, do more planks. I guarantee you will have carryover into the longevity of your running. If you're someone who's increasing your weekly mileage with running, planks are a wonderful way to strengthen your core. They have a direct carryover into any athletic movement. So you'll notice I'm doing just a standard plank. There's ways to modify it, make it more difficult. You see I take one leg, put it off the floor. For those of you who are more advanced, want to challenge yourself more. You have your time that you could hold a regular, then you can put the time that you could hold with one leg up, and then just increase those over time. Like last week I did a minute plank. I'm gonna go for a minute 15 this week. And just keep track of your times. Easiest scalable, like the most scalable exercise you could possibly think of, because there's no limit. If you get to where you can hold a plank for 10 minutes, we're fucking on to something. So that's where I would probably make it more difficult, put weights on your back or something like that. But very scalable, safe exercise. With side planks, oh, and also another modification here, you'll notice I that go from back and forth. There's different things you can do. You can after you've mastered the basic of just holding a plank and feeling it where you want to feel it. That's another thing. If you don't feel it where you want to feel it, you need to alter your form in some way, just like with any exercise. But after you've mastered that, going with your hips, dipping your hips from side to side can bring some of your serratus and oblique into it. A lot of you have concerns around becoming blocky, right? Like if I train my abs, I'll get blocky. Yes, they will hypertrophy if you use a bunch of weight. If you do weighted ab movements, like you see the CrossFit athletes, like on the pro CrossFit games, extreme example, they're also using anabolic steroids for that development. But they do a ton of heavy Olympic lifting, which stimulates that type of oblique growth. So the boxiness, when people look like Lego people, that comes from having really developed obliques. Planks won't do that. It's body weight. You can do as much as you want. It's not going to have a level of hypertrophy, which is breakdown of the muscle tissue, where you're going to have this boxy look. If you want a small waist, that won't get boxy from doing planks or any forward movement. If you do heavy twists or side bends, that's when you will start to develop those core muscles to respond to that heavy stimulus, right? Because our body just adapts to what you give it. So if you keep it at this body weight level, you won't see any of that. Your waist will stay small. What genetics play a big part with both ab visibility and otherwise. I want to name that as well. We're born with a predetermined amount of fat cells and they either shrink or grow. And so if someone is super shredded, and you're genetically not that way, then acceptance is what you need to do while also pushing yourself to your own potential. It's you versus you. Your potential is all that matters. Anyone else's is fucking arbitrary. Ignore it. You versus you. Your best, your race, your pace. Don't compare yourself to people with genetics that are unlike yours. I feel the need to drive that home. Side planks are a great way to, it's another great exercise for athletes, runners, people who, hike, chase your kids, beat your husband, whatever. The side planks are also great for your obliques, your rectus abdominis. And there's also modifications where you can dip your hip again and challenge yourself even more. So you have the time challenge, you can add in repetitions of the hip dips. Either one works. You don't ever have to do a hip dip. You can just keep increasing your time. You can hold these. Wonderful exercise, highly recommend it. Planks are the shit. The next exercise I'm gonna go over is shoulder press with dumbbells. So dumbbell shoulder press. Why would you want to perform these as a woman? Well, just like we've done a press towards the ground with dips, we also want to have an opposite movement up, a press up. Now, you'll notice I did not put pull downs or pull ups in this video. The reason for that is because hardly anybody has access to a pull down machine or a pull up bar at home. It's an advanced exercise. And so if everything were perfect and you had access to everything, I would say add pull-ups to your routine to be the opposition for this movement. But since we don't, we're going to go with rows, which I already demonstrated for our back development. But if you have access to a pull-up bar or pull-down machine, I highly recommend it. In addition to everything that I've recommended in this video, it's the one exercise I would add on. That being said, for shoulder press, the reason you want to do this is because obviously the functional benefits of having strong shoulders, good posture, it's going to translate to a lot of things. If you have to put something on a shelf in your home, your shoulders will be able to withstand that. If you're picking up your toddler and throwing them in the air or wanting to do something with them, check their dirty diaper and be able to have shoulder stability while you do so. I don't know why you do it in the air, but you never know with toddlers. So there's a lot of carryover functionally and aesthetically. I want you to think about when you're wearing anything that shows your shoulders, a tank top, a sports bra, a dress, anything that's low cut. If your shoulders are more developed and lean, it will be more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, why would I want bulky shoulders? I'm gonna look like a linebacker. That doesn't happen. I'm gonna remind you a million times throughout this video, when you develop your muscle tissue, you will not look bigger, you will look leaner because you will proportionately lose body fat, right? And so you'll just get leaner, you won't get bulkier. Just please throw that away. By having leaner shoulders, as well, if we are not wearing clothes, it will give you what's called more of an X frame. Which visually means that you have a little bit of a taper at the top, and then it will make your waist look smaller in proportion if you have developed shoulders and a developed back. If you're looking at your back from behind, you see your waist come up into your developed latissimus dorsi, and then you have your shoulders as the peak. And so it gives you this aesthetic frame, a more athletic looking frame that is more, that will be more appealing to the goal that you have. And I'm speaking from a place of what women have voiced to me they'd like to see. In addition to the functional carryover of shoulder press, it will help you look the way that you want in and out of clothes from a proportional standpoint, because a lot of appearance is based on proportion and illusions. But professional bodybuilders could hit on this all day because it's their career to create these illusions with their own bodies. But as a lifestyle pursuit, having developed shoulders will help your overall look in terms of making your waist look smaller, even if it's not. Then that takes pressure off of having to have a tiny fucking waist. Instead, make everything else more developed. Your legs, your quadriceps, your glutes, your back, and your shoulders developing will take the onus off of you to have a paper thin waist because you haven't developed those things. That being said, let's take a look at the shoulder press. Now, the first thing I want you to notice, and again, Denver's spotting me, keeps everything safe. You'll notice I have the dumbbells on my legs. As you get heavier with these dumbbells, you're gonna wanna pay attention to this. It's the little things that can prevent injury and make your life a lot easier, especially if you don't have a spotter. Luckily, I have Denver. So you'll notice that I take a deep breath and I go 1, 2. Right? I get them up in the chamber. I go one leg and then the other leg. And what that does is it prevents you from having to use a lot of arm to hoist those dumbbells up. And again, this is down the road when you're doing heavier weight, but you should practice it now with lighter weight so that when you get to that point, it's already muscle memory. Again, this will prevent injury. Now you'll notice that my elbows are not to the side. I do not recommend doing this exercise like this. Reason being, exactly like I explained with bench press, you can bring those elbows in a little bit. The point of the shoulder press movement is to train the front deltoid. You have 3 heads on your deltoid. Front, side, rear. I'm not using the scientific terms because I'm keeping it simple, but you have, this is say your front delt for simplicity's sake. It's on the front of your body. And so when you move your elbows here, not only does the exercise become safer and less burden on the shoulder as a whole while still training it, but also you can get a little bit deeper with the movement, stronger with the movement, and progress more with your weight as a result. You're gonna put focus on the front deltoid by doing it this way that I show you. So as you can see, I'm powerful on the way up, I'm slow on the way down. I'm gonna keep repeating that because I want you to implant that in your brain. Always go slow on the way down. You're not in a race, you wanna control the movement. Control the weight, don't let the weight control you. I go up top, you'll notice I don't pause at the top. There's no reason to pause at the top. We wanna keep tension on the muscle. If we pause at the top and lock out all the way, it puts the tension on the joint. We don't want tension on the joint, we want tension on the muscle. When we lock out any exercise, it puts tension on the joint. You're not a professional power lifter, I'm willing to bet, so your form doesn't have to be an exact way because everyone in the competition for powerlifting has to have the exact same form. You're just trying to develop your muscles, stay safe, keep your joints, preserve joint health, and in that pursuit, we don't want to lock out any movement. We want to go to about 95% and then come back down. You'll notice I come all the way below parallel and back up. I'm keeping tension on the muscles the entire time. Same thing with your breathing. You want to exhale on the push up, inhale on the way down, belly full of air at the lowest point, and then exhale on the push up. How many sets and reps? 3 to 4 sets, 12 to 15 reps is fine. The main point, as I'll always drive home, is that you are pushing yourself. Modifications to this would be one arm at a time. You can absolutely do that. You can just do one dumbbell and have the other hand placed on your core or elsewhere, and then the stabilizer muscles come into play. There's all kinds of ways you can modify, but this is my favorite way. You can also do these with the barbell. Obviously, I'm gonna keep demonstrating dumbbells because they're most accessible, they're safest, and they allow freer range of motion than barbells do. But barbells will work for this as well. You would just have a grip that's around shoulder width, and you would press the weight up with the same tempo. You'll notice when I put the weight down, I go back down the same way I came up, one leg at a time. Just kidding, did both of this. So when I put the weight down, I put them on my legs and then I got up that way. That is the best way to do it. You can go one arm at a time, or you can do both like I did here. Either one will work, and then you keep the weights on your legs as you stand up for the safest way to do it. The next exercise I'm gonna go over is bench dips. Now, dips are a very functional and they're very functional exercise, and they have a lot of carryover into other things. If you think about what a dip accomplishes, so we have our arms behind us and we are pushing up. This can carry over into getting yourself out of a beanbag, or getting out of a pool, or anytime maybe your legs are injured, you need to be able to push yourself off of things. Dips do a lot for not only push strength, but shoulder mobility. When you're in a dip, you can go as deep as you need to or as deep as you're limited to based on your shoulder mobility, and then you can actually improve that over time. And so I'm gonna show you bench dips, because a lot of us don't have the strength to do an actual dip on a set of dip bars. They do have an assisted dip machine at a lot of gyms, but if you don't have any of that and you have a couch or you have a chair, you can actually do this modification of dips and get a lot out of it. And there's ways to modify it to make it more or less difficult based on your current skill level. So if you'll watch, I start out with my legs, pretty far away from me. When you're doing a bench dip, the further away your feet are, the more difficult the exercise is going to be. If you bring your feet closer to you, it will be a little bit easier for you. So just gauge your own skill level. So you can see I extend my legs all the way, feet are as far away as possible, and at that point the exercise is at its most difficult. A cool thing about this is once you get acclimated to these and you feel how far down you can go, and just go to your tolerance level. If you feel any kind of pain while doing a bench dip or any form of dip, then stop right there, stop before you feel the pain, and then come back up. You'll get benefit from these even if you're not going all the way down like you see with me. But these have done wonders for my shoulder mobility. So one really cool thing you can do is you can start with your feet all the way out. Do as many reps as you can, and when you reach muscle failure at that difficulty level, you can bring your feet in. Now you can see I'm doing an even further modification here and taking one leg off the ground to make the exercise even more challenging. That's for those of you who are advanced and need to make this exercise a little bit more challenging. You can also put weights in your lap. A plate would be ideal for this, but as you can see, I go from that to an easier version with my feet closer to me, and then I bring my feet all the way in, and this is where the exercise is going to be the least challenging. But if you start at the most challenging, go to muscle failure at the most challenging, and then you can actually bring your feet in, go to muscle failure at that level of challenge, and then bring your feet closer, go to muscle failure at that level. That's a great way to push yourself beyond muscle failure to get even more out of this exercise. How many sets, how many reps? 3-4 sets, as many reps as you can possibly do, and once you're doing more than 20 plus reps, it's time to make the exercise more challenging. Put some plates on your lap, whatever you need to do to make this as challenging as possible. There's also a further variation where you can put your feet on a bench in front of you, and then your legs are actually completely horizontal and parallel with the ground. If you do that, it will make it a lot easier to put plates on your lap, but that would be the most challenging version of this exercise. I'm here to show you how you can do it from your home to get started and start developing the tricep muscle, which is on the back of your arm. So those of you who struggle with, whether it's flabbiness or jiggliness on the back of your arm, a lot of people call them bingo arms when you get bingo and you go like this, right? Your words, not mine. This is a great way to tighten that area up with the development of muscle tissue in that area. In addition to that, there's a lot of functional carryover into your daily routine, into other exercises, like any kind of push exercise is gonna have carryover, and it's great for your shoulder mobility, and you can control how far you push that mobility with this modified version of dips, which is why I like it. The next exercise is tricep extensions. Now you'll notice I demonstrate bench dips, which trains the triceps. We also do bench press, which indirectly trains the triceps. And I'm gonna show tricep extensions, which also directly trains the triceps. The reason for that is because you have 3 different heads on your tricep muscle. It's right here on the back of your arm. It looks like a motherfucking horseshoe. Look at that. Looks like a Clydesdale kicked me in the back of the arm. My triceps are like the only muscle I'm proud of. Anyway, got Thanos tattooed on that bitch. Anyway, since it has 3 heads, you need to train it in different planes of motion, right? So you have a push down, a push forward. Now we have an extension, right? Which will train the tricep a different way. And the reason why I want to do that is because unlike the bicep, which bi, 2 heads, tri, 3 heads, right? Try and stop me. Wait, what is it? Try and get by me. You can't. You're trapped. Anyway, that was lame. An extension train, make sure that we train all 3 heads so you don't have an imbalance. You get less elbow pain. If you're somebody who plays tennis or pickleball, this will keep you from having tennis elbow and shit like that, right? In addition to some forearm work as well. That being said, with these tricep extensions, I'm going to demonstrate on the bench and on the floor because I realize not all of you have a bench. So you'll notice one distinction here with these tricep extensions. I'm going to show with both dumbbells and an easy bar. I'm not extending to where it is directly over my face. The reason for that is gravity. If we think very logically about where the resistance is coming from in this exercise, it's straight down. So if you're laying horizontally with the ground, gravity is pulling straight down behind you. So from about 45 degrees behind my head to the front of my face, there is no resistance. There's no resistance pulling backward horizontally. All the resistance is gravity, which is down. So I want to finagle my body and my arms in a way that takes advantage of that gravitational pull. You need to think about this. When you're using free weights like dumbbells and barbells, the resistance is always straight down towards the ground. So you don't want to arbitrarily do something side to side where nothing is resisting you, right? So all this to say, you'll notice when I extend those dumbbells, they're not straight up in front of my face. They're still a little bit behind my head at an angle. That will keep tension on the muscle, keep you from having to use weight that is so heavy that you could risk injury. And it's just a more logical way to perform the movement. Again, I'm going slow on the way down. I'm extending with power. I'm not fully locking out. I'm just going to about 95% and then back into the downward portion of the movement. How many sets and reps? 3 to 4 sets is fine. 12 to 15 reps, like most exercises. Again, the biggest factor is that you're pushing yourself to do more and more weight week by week. You'll notice here I transition into an easy bar. You can do these with a bar as well. Barbell or easy bar will work. And I use this, I have a closer grip on this easy bar, pretty much like 3 or 4 inches apart with my hands, or maybe 4 or 5. It just depends on what kind of bar you have. But an easy bar will have little rough spots where your hands are supposed to go. And so the same angle applies here. You'll see that I'm extending at a 45-ish angle and not directly above my head because, again, gravity is not pulling back, it's pulling down. And we want to take advantage of that point of resistance. It's straight down towards the earth, right? And so that keeps tension on the muscle, it makes the exercise safer long term, and it helps you get the most out of the exercise. Now, I'm going to demonstrate from the floor. From the floor, you can't go as far back with the movement as you could if you were on a bench, obviously, but that can be a modification too for those of you who don't have that type of shoulder mobility or elbow mobility as well. Elbow mobility does come into play. We have so many joints in our bodies and they all have varying levels of mobility, and that mobility varies from person to person. So that's why I'm showing different variations of these exercises, because from the floor, you actually have a stop right there at the floor. You can rest the weight on the ground and then push back up. Rest the weight, push back up. That's called a dead stop. That's totally fine. It will take tension off the movement for a second, but it will allow you to perform more reps and go up in weight. And the heavier weight you lift, the better. So that's actually an instance where full range of motion isn't the end all be all. You can get a lot of benefit from stopping at the floor because you can use more weight, right? So that's tricep extensions. They're for the back of your arm to prevent those bingo arms. And they have a lot of functional carryover into everything else that you do within upper body training. The next exercise I'm going to go over is curls. Now, this if any exercise had a male stigma attached to it, it's this one. But I can tell you, you're not going to get freaking Popeye biceps from doing bicep curls. It just doesn't work that way. You'd have to do a lot of things to develop to that extent. But I can tell you, you do want not only strong biceps, but you want opposing strength to tricep extensions or dips, your pushing strength, right? Just like I've explained, you want the opposing muscle or the opposite muscle group to be as strong as the other opposing movement. So in this case, yes, we've trained extensions, right? Tricep extensions, dips, pushing horizontally. We also want to have a strong pulling the other side of your arm. You want it to be just as evenly strong because it will prevent injury. If you want to do anything athletic, picking up your toddlers, which you will do over and over as a parent, picking them up out of the crib, picking them up out of their high chair, picking them up out of their car seat, picking them up because they just want you to pick them up. You'll pick up a child, I don't know how many thousands of times until they are the age where they no longer want you to pick them up. I hope that day never comes. But it will, inevitably. And until then, you need strong pulling muscles. You need strong biceps to be able to curl that baby. So that being said, we can keep it really simple. You don't have to go all out on curls. You just want to make sure you train them and provide some resistance so that they can develop and withstand life's daily challenges. So we have a couple different variations here. I'm going to demonstrate with dumbbells. You can also obviously do barbells. I prefer dumbbells because you have more range of motion. You can move your wrists about. You can maneuver your body more. It's just, for me, the most impactful way to train your biceps. You want to keep your elbows tucked, as you can see I'm doing. I'm going to demonstrate from the front and the side. From the front, this is what it will look like. So you want to keep your dumbbells, I like to turn them supinated, is when your wrists are facing out, up, right? And so we have a supinated grip here. We go one at a time and we slow it the fuck down and we squeeze the piss out of it right at the top of the movement, the contraction. You want to just pretend like you're flexing a bicep, but you just happen to be holding weight. And then you let it down slow. Remember, the eccentric portion of the rep is just as important, if not more important, than when you are squeezing. So squeeze, let it down slow. Squeeze, let it down slow. Squeeze, let it down slow. Torture your muscles. Make it hard on them, or else they will not adapt and change like you want them to. So if you want to spend as little time as possible doing curls, because it's not glutes or quads or the fun things that you like to train, then do them right, and you can spend the least amount of time on them possible. So that means doing them intensely. You only need 2 or 3 sets, 12, 15 reps where you're really challenging yourself and that bicep is burning like a motherfucker, okay? That's all you need. I'm gonna turn to the side just to show you what it looks like, and then I'm gonna show you a variation of curls called hammer curls. They actually train a different muscle in the arm called the brachialis, right? So bicep, 2 heads, right? So you'll train both heads with just a standard curl. If you turn your wrist neutral and then curl them as if you're, holding a hammer, it will train the brachialis, which is right here on your arm. That will help prevent things like tennis elbow, tendonitis, etc. Keep it light, squeeze hard, and that's the best way to do that. That's bicep curls. The last exercise I'm gonna go over, and it may surprise you, calf raises. You, believe it or not, do want to have strong calves, and the stimulation that you get from walking isn't enough if you want to prevent injury and also support your feet, support your knees, and help you long-term to have a very mobile body. And when we think about one of the strongest muscles in the body is the soleus. That is the muscle underneath the gastrocnemius, which is the main calf muscle. It doesn't get a whole lot of stimulation unless you directly train it under load, meaning bearing weight. And so in addition to, wanting to continue to be mobile, if you're someone who walks a lot or wants to be active and hike, or if you're just someone who wants to prevent any kind of injury, training the soleus and the gastrocnemius is very important. I won't get too technical here, but you just want to train both, and you have to train you have to perform calf raises in a different manner to target one or the other. And so you'll see the first thing I'm demonstrating here is just standing calf raises, right? So with standing calf raises, it's helpful to hold on to something so you can go with one leg at a time. You can obviously do both feet at once. That's totally fine. You can do them flat-footed on the ground, lock your legs, and then squeeze as hard as you can at the top of the movement. So I'm propelling myself up quickly and then squeezing as hard as I can, almost like you want to cause a calf cramp, and then let yourself back down slow, and then right back up into it. Okay, so when we train in this way with our legs straight, we train the main calf muscle, which is the gastrocnemius. Okay, with calves, you can do as many reps as you possibly can. There's no hard limit. You just want to push yourself hard to where your calves are burning insanely. You'll notice now that I bend the leg and perform calf raises. It's still standing calf raises, but my knees are bent. This will train the gastrocnemius. That's a subtle way to change this exercise to target both the gastroc and the soleus, and so that you prevent injury. You strengthen one of the strongest muscles in the body and one of the most important muscles in the body. This will help your feet. This will help with knee pain. This will help propel you forward. One last modification I want to demonstrate is seated calf raises on a bench, putting dumbbells on each knee and then pressing upward against those dumbbells, which are pressing downwards towards gravity. That's a great way to scale seated calf raises. If you don't have a seated calf raise machine or access to one, you can still do them just sitting on a bench and using heavier and heavier weight over time. Again, the rep range can be a little flexible here. Just push yourself until those things are exhausted. 2 to 3 sets is fine. It's not something you want to neglect, because it will complete or round out your fitness, your strength, your mobility, and long-term injury prevention. And you don't want to rupture a fucking Achilles taking taking off to run after your toddler when they have the entire roll of toilet paper from the bathroom, right? I sure don't. This will prevent that. So those are the 13 exercises I would recommend that if you only do those and you scale those and you stay consistent and you progressively challenge yourself more and more with these fundamental exercises, you will never need anything else. You'll never have to do a one-legged Bosu ball squat while holding a kettlebell above your head and reciting the national anthem. You'll never have to do anything crazy. You can ignore all the influencers showing you all kinds of different variations that look super fancy. And they do have some merit if you do them, but you don't have to complicate what is abundantly simple. I gave you 2 + 2. You don't have to split atoms. If you follow what I have outlined in this video, along with all the other nutrition concepts and mindset concepts that I have put out, along with how to transform your body in phases with your nutrition, you've got the full template here. As always, I'm here for any questions you have. I'm just here to serve. I want you to win no matter what. If you want to take your fitness to the next level, if you want to transform your body in a very predictable way, I'll put the link for our website so you can find out more about our coaching. But regardless if you work with us or not, I just want you to win. So ask questions anytime. I answer all my DMs. I don't have a life. This is what I do. But if you like this video and you got a lot of value from it, I highly recommend you check out this one next. I'll see you on the other side.